Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro, friends. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Elixir Specialty Coffee and our upcoming event in Australia, Assertiveness Training for the Hospitality Industry. If you are in Sydney, Australia, or anywhere in the world and you would like to get this assertiveness training, it will be held on the 21st of September. That's a Saturday. Tickets are available now. We'll be announcing our sponsors very soon, and our sponsors will have a $10 discount code. The tickets that are currently available are $75 each, and the tickets with our sponsor discounts will be $10 cheaper. I want to say before I start the episode of today's podcast for the Daily Coffee Pro, if you're thinking about entering competition at any point, if you are wondering how to communicate better with people who bully you, if you are wanting to understand how to get less aggressive with the way that you're perceived by people, sometimes people come off as really strong and don't know how to pull that back. If that's the case, this workshop is for you, and it will change the way that you see the world, and it will change the way that the world sees you. If you would like to get Elixir, you can purchase an Elixir Trio with your ticket and pick it up at the event. So head to mapitforward.org/events and pick up your ticket today. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro, we are talking about gender relations in the coffee industry. This is really dear to my heart because for a long time in the coffee industry, I thought that there was something really wrong with me throughout my career. I'm starting to realize that it really isn't me that there is something wrong with. It is the issues with gender in the coffee industry. It is, the best way to put this, we don't understand each other very well. There's so much complexity that goes on with regards to gender relations in the coffee industry and in the world, to be honest with you. And I have spent a lot of time learning about this over the last 3 or 4 years. It's fascinated me. It has been a huge impediment to my career and my progress in both my career and in business. And it's why I wanted to get better at it. And I got to tell you, in learning about all of this, I have come to see what I bring that creates my own impediments in my progress based on the way that I see this situation. Let me help explain that. I really took a victim status a lot of the time when I noticed that I was being mistreated, when I was being bullied, when I was being dissuaded from doing things and moving forward. I would feel like a victim when I could see something was very deliberately being discriminated against me because I was a woman. I look at the world very differently now, and I realized for myself, and this is purely what I'm talking about right now is for myself. I realized that if I wanted anybody else to remove my gender from the conversation, I had to remove my gender from the conversation. And that has been a journey. And a big part of that has been assertiveness training. It really has. And so as much as everybody else, I'm excited about this assertiveness training that's happening. However, I do appreciate that I spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to learn about this, and that is not the case for the majority of our industry. I come from a privileged situation in that perspective, in that I have been able to make the things that I am interested in a part of my work. So understanding gender relations, understanding race relations, understanding how the coffee industry works, all of this is a part of my job for Map It Forward. And so I'm very fortunate in the sense that I can spend a lot of time researching these things, listening to podcasts, And I would invite you to listen to one podcast in particular. I know that if you're a regular listener of this podcast, you've heard me go on about this podcast many times, but I invite you to listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. And the reason I say that, I've learnt a lot about men and about the way that men see the gender issue on the Joe Rogan podcast. The thing I learnt the most about men, which has really, really shocked me, and it's the thing that really shifted the way that I look at my role and my victimhood in the way that I did business, is that there was something in particular that I was completely unaware that was going on. And that is that when men commune, there is a behavior that I was unaware of that happens, where they work to figure out who's established as the alpha amongst the group. And there's a whole bunch of, like, to put it colloquially, there's a bunch of dick measuring that goes on. And I was unaware that that happens. They do that in subtle ways. And as a part of doing that, one of the things that they do is, I'm actually not going to say that because I'm going to get targeted, and I don't want to be targeted for talking about this particular issue. It's hard enough to talk about anyway. But men do this behavior, and I was on the receiving end of some of the bullying that comes from that. And so now I have learnt how to avoid that behavior. And I will learn even more of it from what Jamie Berry is going to teach us at the assertiveness training. Now, the other part of this gender discussion is how people are being perceived based on their gender and what role that's playing in the coffee industry. I'm spending a lot of time learning about pronouns. I'm spending a lot of time learning about how people like to identify and what that means. And look, I'm a woman in my 40s. So this culture is moving way more rapidly than what a lot of us are able to catch up to. And it's not just me in my 40s or people in their 50s, 60s or whatever. A lot of people in their 30s and in their later 20s are struggling with understanding how all of this fits in. So for those of you who find the requirement to identify with a particular pronoun, gender pronoun, important, I would invite you to help those of us who haven't quite got our heads around it. Teach us. Help us understand. Don't knock us down if we don't use the right pronoun every time. We're trying to learn. And I refuse to believe that there are people in our industry that are trying to deliberately dead name people. Dead naming is calling somebody by the name that they used to identify with. And I refuse to believe that there are people that deliberately want to do that. And if there are, I'd like to know who they are. We're not going to dox anybody, but we might send them some information to help them get there. I encourage you to consider that there are a lot more complex things going on than people being assholes at face value. There are situations that are being exploited on the internet for people who seem to be treating their employees not great. And then when I give those people a call and dig deeper, I realize that the whole story hasn't been told. So don't believe everything that you read or that you hear about. The other thing that I want to talk about today is I would invite you to consider that we are all learning. And what I mean by that specifically today is that There was a situation recently where a friend of mine was bullied online by somebody in the coffee industry. And this person, my friend was a female, and she wrote some things, and this other person attacked her. And this other person could not see in any way, shape, or form that they were being aggressive or attacking. And it was interesting. So many people came to her defense. And when he and I chatted months later, he has told me that he has never had to deal with online bullying before and had to seek some help for it. And now he is coming to realize the situation differently. And he is starting to see perhaps that his behavior, while well-intentioned, may not have been received the way it was intended. This is what I'm talking about when I say that assertiveness training is for people who are far more aggressive than they realize. Even if they're well-intentioned, your aggression with regards to the way that you communicate needs to be considered. And so this is where the idea of empathy comes in. And so there are a lot of, so this is the behavior that I observe a lot. I observe men telling everybody how things should go in the group that they're communicating with, and really driving their opinion so hardly, so hard, that it just destroys everybody else's opportunity to have a say. And that's just not constructive. It's not open-minded. It's not what we should be cultivating as a conversation. And I've come to realize that many men are unaware of the aggression that they bring to conversation and to situations. And so I invite those of you, men, women, non-binary, whatever you want to identify with, I invite you to consider the way that your behavior is being perceived by other people, and consider that you could be working in greater harmony with your industry if you consider the way that you show up for yourself and for other people, and how that's being received by everybody else. I strongly recommend that if you can get to this assertiveness training, you get there. I will be doing just the opening for this. I will be framing the discussion. The rest of the day is going to be led by Dr. Jamie Berry. And this is typically a $450 workshop for the whole day. We are getting an extraordinary opportunity to take this training for $75, $65 if you end up with a sponsor discount. If you can take this training. I promise you it will change your life. And Jamie's super excited. He's not done something like this for the hospitality industry before. This will be a world first. So again, mapitforward.org/events. We will be turning this into an online workshop, and we're going to try and make it available for the same price. So I hope that we can sell this out and we can start changing the industry and get everybody communicating with greater assertiveness and confidence. And imagine what we can do as an industry when we're all communicating assertively and with an open mind. I'm very excited about that prospect. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day.